Okay, so today we wanted to talk about the niche. What's your niche, and how do you determine niche? And this is something that we've been talking about recently and thinking about recently. Both Zoria and I are taking a multifamily accelerated mentorship with Corey Spurley, and today, like this week's topic was about niche. So we wanted to chat about it today because we thought this topic is really important, because it's really important to specialize in something. And you probably have heard the phrase swim in your lane. So why do you need to swim in your lane? What's so important about swimming in your lane?
Mhm.
Oh yeah, and I see Michael is asking about the USA Investing webinar link. So that's great. Yeah, Zoria
Okay,
can send
sure.
it to
Yeah, I
you.
can send that to you after.
Yeah. So I hope that can you guys start posting maybe and let us know if why you think picking a niche and specializing in a niche is so important in real estate investing.
Yeah, or
Zoria
like
might have
what is
ideas
your
on it.
niche?
Is it niche or
Um,
niche?
oh yeah,
Niche or niche?
I say niche. Other people say niche. So
Niche.
either way, um,
I mispronounced it both ways, both times.
so
Yeah.
yeah, and if you have a niche in real estate, yeah, post it in the comments. Like, do you have one? Or even just yes or no, do you have a niche? And not just in real estate. I think it's so important to get like really specific about it, right? So even multifamily is not specific enough, right? That
No.
because if you were like if you say multifamily is your niche and so yeah, then you end up buying like a sixplex in New Brunswick and then a 10plex in Edmonton and something else like a triplex in Vancouver or Vickerville, right? Like you're all over the place and that's going to be a disaster. And why
Location-wise,
is
yeah.
that? It's because you're basically to be really successful in one location requires a lot of work. First to know the market and then really to establish a good team and to like really get known even in that market as a multifamily buyer, so that realtors will actually send you deals. So yeah, it's really good to get focused on that. So we can kind of step through like how specific should you go. um,
Yeah, exactly. So there is like a niche within niche, a micro niche. So you decide on a location because, like Zoria said, that power team, you can have your power team travel between provinces, or even if you're within one province and between towns, sometimes you can get your property manager manage your multifamily project property in like somewhere rural Alberta.
yeah,
So you
very
need to
likely not.
find locals. Yeah,
Even
it's for
like
maintenance, right?
yeah, even oh yeah, maybe like you could get like a handyman to drive out a little bit, but like certain property management companies. I even know in Edmonton, like they even the property management companies have a niche. So, and usually
Yeah.
it's by size and
Mhm.
location of property. Because they just work best that way. They have a certain reason why they say don't want to manage anything below 20 units. It's just not worth their time.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it's important so that you can then fit with a certain property management company and their niche. So like even if you choose Edmonton and then you get a 20 unit and then a 6 unit, the same property manager may not want to manage both of them. So
Yeah. Unless I wonder if you can negotiate if it's within the same block or somewhere like in short distance, so it's not
mhm.
that far from them to drive and they can just take it as one package.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
there
If
is
you
a
have them close
negotiation
together,
there.
that's different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
An
yeah.
interesting fact that I've heard Zoria at Corley's call this week or last week is that try to be close together, try to almost like buy whole streets and blocks, right? So that you have all these properties are so close to each other, and it's easier for people to manage and for you to
Mhm.
get a team to manage that as that
Yeah.
block of properties.
Yeah.
And then I
That's
wonder,
like
you probably wouldn't be competing with like other investors, right? You can be setting strategically prices, and maybe it's even easier from that
yeah,
way.
if you have kind of a monopoly on that street.
Yeah.
But it's that's like ideal, but be able to do that is really tricky.
Mhm.
That's why I see investors like they have this kind of same size of property, but they are still scattered all over Edmonton because it's pretty hard to have them so concentrated. But if you can, that's fantastic. Or even two like side by side. I've seen some people do that, and then they can share. Like there's an on-site who lives in one building and can easily manage the building right beside it as well. You don't need a caretaker in both buildings.
For the other building, that's a really good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So when I went
And then,
undercover once, that's what I discovered.
yeah. And back to my original question for like, what's the other reason why it's so important to pick a niche? And when I think about it, it's important to, once you pick your niche, you really know the market so well, inside out. You're watching that market and you're becoming an expert in that specific local market, that you're able to recognize opportunities when they come your way. That it's a good opportunity, that's a great opportunity, that's an overpriced building. I mean, you can also do that in bigger markets, but it's a lot easier when you're really specialized and you're known for a specific strategy for a specific type of property, so that when your realtor, let's say, who specializes in that type of property or in that type of strategy, when they see a building come up on market, they have pocket listings, they call you, they think of you.
I think of you. Yeah, exactly. I think almost everything gets easier in a way when you are specific, right? You know exactly what you're looking for. Like it'll be easier to filter deals too. Like it'd be like, no, that's not what I invest in. Yeah, becoming known for that is really good.
And it's so hard though, right? In the beginnings, though, Zorya, to figure out what that is.
It's tough to narrow that down. Yeah.
Yeah. And people tend to take all these courses, pay so much for different courses, different strategies, just to have more tools in their belts, right? To maybe they'll use it one day.
Yeah.
And then you almost become paralyzed by taking this training, and you feel like maybe I'm not ready yet. Maybe I need to take more training, and you're not taking that action. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a kind of a balance there. You have to also just take action. And even if, say, you buy something and then, okay, and then the next one is a slightly bigger building and like, oh, they're not the same, but that's okay. Like maybe you grow into a niche and then eventually you sell the buildings that you bought at the beginning that maybe you made some mistakes on. But yeah, it's not going to be perfect. That's all the whole big thing about real estate. You have to take action and go for it. I wanted to mention also that another way to kind of make your niche more specific is to think about what type of tenant you're going to want.
Yes, the good point. Tenants.
Location, but not just about like the size of the building, but what's the tenant demographic that you're focusing on. Because again, like certain property management companies, may say like, no, we're not managing that tenant type or that property type.
And would you be able to sleep at night knowing that the type of tenant demographic you're dealing with? I don't know. Yeah, every time I think about, really older multifamily buildings and like rough neighborhoods, like bed bugs come up, right? Break-ins, and I drive by and I see this older multifamily buildings in this like downtown core almost in Edmonton, and basement windows have bars on them. So just what does it tell you, right? Like what kind of problems the owners of those buildings have to deal with.
Yeah, it's totally different. But yeah, some people make that their specialty. Like I know that there's people that they allow smokers in their buildings. That's kind of their niche. And the upside is that they are long-term tenants because they have a hard time finding a different place to move to.
Yes, I can testify to that because I advertise even all my units, non-smokers only, please. And I did get disgruntled people yelling at me on the phone, but I'm sorry, it's not in the Alberta Human Rights Act. I can tell if, people are coming into my units who are smokers or not smokers. So yeah, I don't want to deal with that. I've dealt with that before and not again. I like pets. I can deal with that, but not smokers.
Yeah, but if you have the whole building that's smokers, and then it works.
Specialize on that, yeah.
I thought that was interesting when I heard that. I was like,
yeah, I've never heard that before.
Yeah, but they're long-term tenants.
Yeah, yeah, that's I can see why, because people like me will not want to take smokers inside their units.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how about you guys? If you have any comments or questions, just a question for you: what's your niche, and how did you determine what your niche would be?
Mhm.
Like one way to think about it is what kind of tenant demographic you would want to deal with,
Yeah, that's
because
one of
tenants can
the hard.
make or break it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
because
some,
ours, like, our tenant demographics is, like, completely different than,
yeah,
the other people
yeah,
we've been talking to lately.
yeah.
Like, yeah, almost everybody is attracted to our brand new multifamily building. And so we get our choice of tenants, and we could just pick
Mhm.
the best, the highest credit score people. And
Yeah.
so it's a very different, and we're not ever worried about, I don't know, I guess vandalism as much, about yeah, like people leaving shopping carts in front of our building. It's just like not
Mhm.
that kind of area.
And it's going back to, I keep saying that every strategy has its pros and cons, right? It's
Mhm.
not like all rosy. Yeah, that's why we are paying premium, and
Yeah,
it's a brand new building. There's a reason for that, right? And
yeah,
then you're attracting a certain type of tenant demographic. You're not dealing with maintenance and repairs as much, especially that it's covered for the first year with warranty, and you're
mhm.
dealing with deficiencies for the new builds. Yeah, it's every strategy has its great things and not so great things, and you just need to
Yeah,
be
and I can
honest with yourself,
see
like what you
from
want to deal with.
experience
Yeah,
that, these nicer properties, what you do have to deal with is, like, the tenants actually feel the type of tenants that are attracted and who have, good credit scores and everything, they're a little bit more entitled.
entitled. Yes.
Yeah, so they expect
Beautiful.
repairs to be done right away, when there's an issue. And almost like, yeah. So we've had some issues like that. Um,
Yeah.
they're like,
Well,
just, they know that they're living in a basement suite, yet they're complaining about noise. Like, well, that's what you get when you live in a suited properly. There's going to be a little bit of noise transfer. It's not going to be like
yeah,
completely silent.
yeah, yeah. Well, they know that they're living in a brand new property.
Yeah,
It's like the way I described it to somebody this week is that these are, you can say, luxurious rental properties, rental units. That's why tenants are paying top dollar for them.
hmm,
And that's why our properties also cash flow from day one,
yeah,
which, yeah, you need to have stomach for. If you're buying an older building, that something I've learned new this week is that it's not always going to cash flow from day one. And sometimes you have to make sure that even if you have cash flow in the first 3 years, you don't distribute it to your investors, but you put it back into your building, because
yeah,
there's lots of maintenance issues with older buildings. Yeah.
yeah. You have to have a really big reserve fund for that,
Mhm.
and constantly being reevaluating it every year.
Yeah, so that's why it's so important to specialize in the niche, right?
Yeah, you
Like,
kind of know what to look for. It's like just the
yeah.
operations of that building is so different,
Mhm.
right? Even if you have a property manager, or like even two different property managers, it's literally like almost double the work. And now if you go into a different city, it's completely
Can
new
you
again.
imagine? Yeah.
It's again double if
And
you're
then
if you're the
yeah,
only like managing partner in that building.
yeah, exactly. And what if there's turnover in your property managers? You have to scramble, look for a new one. And it's so important to find the right one, right? Because they're the face of your company. They
Yeah,
deal with tenants.
absolutely. The
Yeah.
person who's doing the showings is kind of the face of the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes it very personable.
I just learned that by going undercover. I learned a lot. Just go if you wanna learn about multifamily, just pretend you're a tenant and just go
Looking.
look at
Yeah.
units, and, um, yeah, you'll learn a lot. Ask the on-site a lot of questions, and,
Mm.
but, like, why is this a good area? And then you just kinda see, like, how they conduct themselves. It's really interesting. Because I had, like, personally,
Yeah.
had never lived in an apartment building, so I didn't know.
I have.
So you have that experience.
Yes. Yeah. It was, yeah, interesting. Actually, yeah, I lived on 124th Street. It was a great location. I loved it. But yeah, there were issues for sure, with tenants. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's why we even like left and decided to buy the house as quickly as possible. Yeah, I really want to deal with some of the tenants. Okay, so what Michael is saying. Oh, did you show Michael's?
I was showing.
Pressing
There
together.
it is. So yeah, Michael's asking, how do you factor in vacancy rate just in case? Is there a specific percent you add into costs just in case?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like we always factor in a vacancy rate.
Mm-hmm.
And you could take, there's all sorts of data out there, especially when you're in a bigger city like Edmonton, or there's CMHC data out there. You can go and you can actually go like by location. So if you're like in a certain neighborhood in Edmonton, you can actually get data on that. But just know that data it's mostly for multifamily. Like they ask the people that own like hundreds of units on what their vacancy rate is. And so, yeah, if you're kind of looking at single family, it might not be the exact vacancy rate. That said, like someone, I think Chris Davies mentioned it the other day that, vacancy, you can really decide what your vacancy rate is. If you drop your rent, then you can be 100% full. If you increase your rent, then you're going to have some vacancy. So like you kind of are in control of that. So
it's your decision. Vacancy is your decision.
Yeah.
But in terms of like specific numbers, I've heard Wayne and Gabby Hillier talk about having 8%.
Yeah, that's what we do on our residential as well.
Residential, yeah. Just because if you multiply that by 12, that's almost 100%, and you get at least like 1 month's covered of vacancy.
Yeah, 8% is essentially a month vacant.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what I would use to be on the conservative side.
Yeah.
But if you have multiple units, then you could say like, and it really depends on the type of property as well. So yeah, we use like between 4 and 8% in Edmonton, but you definitely want to include that in your like an analysis when you're doing figuring out whether it's going to cash flow or not.
And make sure you put that aside, every single month. All right. Any other questions or any other comments? I'm always curious about how people pick their niche. I talk to people and they tell me they're taking so many different courses, and it's like you're not really specializing in something, right? And I always recommend to specialize in something. And
you mean when taking all these courses about different topics?
Yeah.
Which is not bad to do at the beginning to kind of figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, and you also need to think and reflect, right? All these questions in terms of resources that you have, what type of tenant demographic you want to deal with, what you have stomach for. Talk to different investors, what they like and don't like about their strategies that they pick.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Yeah, just to talk to other investors, what they do.
Mm-hmm. Michael is asking, can you go through process briefly on cash flow analysis?
Yeah. So basic cash flow analysis would be to take the rent and subtract your vacancy. So then that gives you kind of your gross effective income. And then as far as expenses, I always also include, so you're always going to have your financing, your mortgage, taxes, and insurance, but then also include repairs and maintenance and vacancy. I said that already. And I also, I just try and include all of the expenses that I could think of, even my bookkeeper costs, even my annual accounting and legal fees.
Yeah.
And I just kind of try and incorporate all of my expenses. And then at the end, whatever you have left over, that's your cash flow.
Yeah. And then, Michael, it's easier if you put it in an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can do all these formulas and really know what you're putting in the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And
if you need a spreadsheet, I can share one. You can message me. I can share one because it's nice when there's like a mortgage calculator attached to the spreadsheet. So then it automatically figures out what your mortgage payment is going to be. That's really helpful. So yeah, I can send that to you too.
Yeah. Thanks, Zorya. That will be very helpful for Michael, I think.
And then how you do it for multifamily is a little bit different. But yeah, maybe that would be a topic for another day about school, because like when a lender or CMHC is doing their cash flow analysis to figure out, the net operating income and ultimately the value of your property, they actually don't include all of the expenses. They only include certain things, and then they have benchmarks and stuff. So maybe that would be a topic for another
live. Yeah. And Norman is also asking about pro forma.
Could you share the calculations? Yeah, I have like an Excel spreadsheet that it's a pretty simple one, but it's nice that it has a mortgage thing attached. And it also calculates your return on investment, like your mortgage pay down, your cash flow, and your appreciation every year. And I just like working with spreadsheets because, well, I'm an engineer, but also because you can just change it, all the time. It's not like, I just don't like apps because it's like somebody else figured that out.
Somebody else's, yeah.
It's not flexible.
And with spreadsheets, you can add things, and
you can add things easily. You can change how things calculate easily.
For annual appreciation, though, like I wouldn't be using more than maybe 1%, because snowing in Edmonton, we've been pretty flat.
It's
just
been
to be
pretty
on the conservative side.
Lately, I have been increasing that just because of inflation. Like it has been.
It will be increasing, yeah.
So, yeah, I think you can go higher
2%.
than
2%. Because that really changes the ROI.
2 or 3%. Because once you go like really much higher, it really affects your ROI, and it makes it look like a fantastic property, but it's actually mostly based on speculation.
Yeah, because appreciation is speculation. We are not in control of how market appreciates.
Yeah. But as interest rates go up, maybe another topic, but briefly, as interest rates, as inflation goes up, and interest rates are going up too. And I really don't think that the interest rates are going to surpass the inflation rate. But so if, say, interest rates are 3%, like potentially that inflation will also be 3%. But it's just speculative too. So you have to kind of do it. What you feel comfortable with?
Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes it also depends on the location, right? Where what type of house it is. The appreciation will depend on all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It really depends on the market.
Yeah. Well, I think we are at the end of our live here. Thanks so much for everybody who was watching us live and engaged in the conversation with us. And thanks everybody who tuned in into the recording. We'll see you next Saturday.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.